Welcome back to Get Your Voice Out There. I'm Roberta Chadis, and this show is dedicated to people in the community who want to get their voice out about some very important things that they're working on. And today is a wonderful experience with Dr. Mary Baures, because she has been getting her voice out about some animals that haven't the voice to do it. And she does it through words and her beautiful photographs. Welcome to the show, Mary.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good to be here.
It's wonderful to have you. And because you're an author and people want to understand the whole concept of what you're writing about, we have a little video that we're going to show very quickly right now to introduce what we're going to talk about. So let's show that video now. Mary, this book is a lot of work. I've read it.
Yeah.
And it's called Love Heals Baby Elephants. So let's hear the story of how you came up with this whole idea of writing a book and more information about what you do.
Okay. Well, as a psychologist, I specialize in healing from trauma. And previously, I wrote a book on people's healing from trauma. It's called Undaunted Spirits, Portraits of Recovery from Trauma. And I studied people with horrific losses, like Max Cleland, who was blown apart by a grenade and lost two legs and an arm, and then went on to become a U.S. Senator. I interviewed Elie Wiesel, who was in the German concentration camps and went on to be a Nobel Peace Prize winner. I interviewed a nurse who was on trial for murder for giving a cancer patient too much morphine, who was dying. So I studied healing in human beings, but elephants and human beings have very similar neurobiology. They actually have better memory, they have better spatial reasoning, and they are psychic, which I can talk about later. So I thought, well, I know so much about healing from trauma, let's apply that to the baby elephants, who I was very compassionately worried about what was happening to them because they're going extinct because of the ivory trade. So I adopted 4 baby elephants, not all at once, consecutively, and I studied. I was going to Africa all the time because I'm a wildlife photographer, and I took photos at the orphanage. But I also did a lot of study through, when you adopt a baby elephant, they send you weekly and monthly reports. Your little baby is cutting teeth, your little baby has friends, here's your baby in a mud bath. So you get all of the day-by-day blow. I mean, of course, I'm not there with the baby elephant that I adopted. I have been there to visit them, but I had this day-by-day blow of what happened to them. So that's how I did the analysis of the trauma recovery. So I studied the stages, and that's what I wrote the book about.
It's so fascinating. And I'm sure our audience wants to see some of the pictures of these adopted elephants. And there's stories behind them, because I know you adopted 4.
4, yeah.
So let's bring up a picture about some of these elephants right now.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay, so that one is Mabago. And she got separated from her herd because the Kenya Wildlife Service shot an elephant. And as a result, the herd stampeded. They shot the elephant because the elephant had trampled a woman. I do not know the story of what happened. But the villagers, in revenge for the trampled woman, went after this baby and stabbed her multiple times. So the baby was running and running and went to the school for some refuge, and the kids stoned her. Finally, some humans intervened, and they secured her in a classroom. The pictures of her crumpled against the wall. So fortunately, the wounds did not get infected. She was taken to the David Sheldrick Wildlife Trust. And what's wonderful about her is she's a very loving little elephant. And she looks out for anybody who's been bullied. And she's just incredibly loving towards humans in spite of what humans did to her. So it's just magnificent that she was able to come back from that horror.
And that is part of that healing process.
Right.
To get the help. So should we look at another picture?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's bring up another one.
Let's see. So that's Kamuk. And this little baby, when she was born, had some weak legs. So what happened is she could not walk right. So we don't exactly know the story because nobody saw it, but we're assuming that these elephants on the run from poachers, always nervous. A lot of them have PTSD because they see all the other elephants' carcasses, and they've seen other elephants get shot. They're very cautious, and so they're on the run. And so this mother elephant gave birth to this baby who was unable to walk. Unable to walk. She had an umbilical cord. Her feet were like fresh, and so she was rescued. And when she was taken into the nursery, she was able to learn to, in their 2 years in the uterus, and so their feet are like buckled up. So when they come out, it takes a while sometimes for them to stretch out.
Yes.
Now, some of the problem with the elephants is if you have a matriarch, the matriarch knows all this because she's been around for 40, 50 years, and she knows about what to do with baby elephants who can't walk. But because of the elephant crisis, where all the really big elephants with tusks are shot, a lot of the mothers are by themselves without a herd. They're not very old. They're young. They don't really know what to do with a baby who can't walk, and they're nervous because they need to survive themselves because poachers are after them. So this baby got left behind. And if these elephants weren't at risk in running from poachers all the time and didn't have the matriarchs who had all this knowledge there to help, this wouldn't be happening. It's the crisis among the whole elephant herd that is why this baby was left behind.
And what I'm hearing from you is the whole story through these animals. And that is the picture of the serious crisis that we're in surrounding the ivory wars.
Right. And, I think that there's just something horrific that we're doing to these animals. I mean, when you kind of step back and think about it, an elephant with a big tusk and a baby is killed and chopped up for this little statue that you put on a shelf. So why is this little statue a dead thing that is so of less value than the elephant? So it's like valuing an object, a little statue, over life. What's wrong with our values that we're doing that? I mean, we need to step back and wonder, what's going on with the way we think about objects over life.
It's very sad. It really is. So let's get back to a few more pictures of your beautiful photography from Africa.
Okay.
Let's see what picture comes up next.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, I love this one.
Okay. Okay. So what happens? The babies, when they come into the orphanage, are totally traumatized. They're shut down. The first thing that happens when they come in is they believe that the humans that rescued them are going to kill them. They are shut down. An animal that's being attacked by a larger animal will just kind of go limp because animals that aren't fighting aren't attacked. So they shut down and they're like in shock. So the other little babies, they bring the other little babies in, they wrap their little trunks around them, and that makes them feel safe. So some of them, they can never get over the grief, so they get together and they grieve together. And what happens is that connection, that warmth of the other little baby elephant helps them process some of the grief. And they cry. They actually have tears coming down their face as they do that with each other.
Unbelievable. It must be such an unreal experience to be that close to see. So let's bring up one or two more of the photos that you brought in on the elephants so we can move along.
All right.
Okay?
Okay.
Okay, great.
So this is what happens in the morning. In the wintertime, they need little coats for, well, two reasons. One, it gets cold sometimes in the morning, but also to keep the sun off their back. In the wild, the little babies walk under the herd, and they have their mother that is constantly shielding them from the sun. Their skin is very delicate. Actually, the keepers rub suntan lotion on their little skin, and they put these coats on them so they don't get burnt because they don't have a mommy.
This is so sad. And I was reading in your book about the mud. The reason that they put mud all over them is to also keep them cool and
well,
protect.
It's a sunscreen, but also keeps the bugs off too. The bugs can't get through the mud.
The bugs. All right, let's see a couple more pictures. Oh, I love this one too, with they playing, right?
Yeah, well, she's following her mom, and she's probably looking for some milk. Got her trunk up, ready to find some milk.
Yeah, it's just so wonderful to see your photography, Mary, really. How difficult is it for you to be carrying all that equipment around?
Well, the good thing about Africa is they don't let you walk around. Because she's a lion might get you.
Yes, that's true.
So you're in a vehicle and you go scooting along, and in the vehicle I have a tripod set up. It's very important that you keep the camera still, and I have a very heavy camera, so I can't even really, with the big lenses on, I can't really hold it because I'm not that strong. So I have it all on a tripod, and so we scoot around in this vehicle, and that helps.
That explains a lot of things to me and maybe our audience. And I think we may be ready to move on to another species, shall we?
Yeah, we could go on to
My
the rhinos.
favorite.
Yeah.
Although I love elephants, I have a passion for rhinos. And I know you have a few wonderful pictures and stories about rhinos.
Yes. Well, the orphanage where my babies were adopted, the David Sheldrick Wildlife Trust, they do rhinos too, but not in the magnitude of elephants. So I think about 10 calves have been raised there. And they have Maxwell. He's a blind rhino who can never be released in the wild. And he lives there at the orphanage probably permanently, or until I think they live about 40-something years. And next door to him was this other rhino who was a female who he's absolutely in love with. And she, because she could see, was released into the wild. Oh. So she comes back every week or so and visits. And he knows when she's coming. So he goes circling around in his little pen with his tail up, and then everybody knows, oh, here comes Solo.
So he knows.
He knows some kind of a smell. I don't know if he can smell that far away. But she comes and she visits, and she like goes through the orphanage, and she lived there, so everybody's comfortable with her.
That's great.
So I was in Kenya last June, and we went to Lua, which they do a tremendous amount of rescuing of rhinos, and they have about 4 orphans. So we went out into the bush, and there's a place in Lua that had some rangers that were guarding this little baby rhino. Full-time guard, because the mom is blind, and the mom lost all the previous babies to predators. So rangers take care of this little rhino. He's a black rhino. Rhinos they're on the brink of extinction, the black rhinos.
It's such a sad story, honestly.
Yeah.
I hope that things turn around, and will, with your help, and I know all the work that you're doing and other people that you work with, it'll be, there's some hope.
Right.
There's some hope. And I also want to wander on to that wonderful story you have about the lions.
Okay.
Would you like to share
Yeah.
that? Okay.
Yeah. So after I talk about, in the book, after I talk about the elephant orphanage and how great elephants are and how psychic they are, I really talk about our consciousness and what we're doing generally to animals and how we kind of live in a cult of superiority where we imagine ourselves superior. We don't value their lives. But Mother Nature, who created all of us, didn't imagine that we're superior, but we, because we have arrogance, believe that we're superior. And I don't think most human beings would ever go out to harm another creature. Certainly there are trophy hunters that do that, and they're another story. But I use this story because we, as wildlife photographers, inadvertently probably put this little cub at danger because we were so absorbed in our picture taking.
Mm-hmm.
So we saw this group of lions, a whole pride of lions, crossing a river.
And you have pictures of that.
Yeah,
So
and this
we'll
is in
bring
the
that up.
in the
Mhm.
Masai
Okay.
Mara in Kenya. So first of all, this male lion goes across, and then a whole group of the females come, and they jump. So the river is like very turbulent. The rocks are going, the sound is going, but the big lions are jumping from rock to rock to rock.
Mm-hmm.
So then two little cubs come down, and they can't jump from rock to rock to rock. So what happens is one of them, they're like scared, but one of them just jumps in and swims across.
Mm-hmm.
And so this other one, he bats the water with his paw,
Yes.
and he cries,
Oh,
and he
no.
keeps crying, and he won't go. So, this is going on for a while. So Mom peeks out from so right where the other one had gone across, Mom's head peeks out there because she had like got the other one, and she's peeking out. So she comes back across on the rocks.
Mm-hmm.
And he has gone up at the top of the hill, and she goes up and she tries to lift him up, but he's too heavy now.
Oh.
And so, to our dismay, she left him there. So we were devastated because we had heard the day before 2 little lion cubs had been killed by some hyenas. These predators will kill the other one's cubs. What happened is they got separated from the adults by the Maasai, who come down to they have cattle that they take onto the grass. Mm-hmm. So the lions are afraid of the Maasai because they have killed a number of lions. Some of their rituals to be a man is you kill a lion. I don't think they do it much anymore. But the lions are scared of them, and they didn't go in to try to rescue their cubs, and the hyenas came along and killed them. So we thought, oh my God, here we are. I mean, we were just evolved in taking pictures. We didn't know. And I think that's mostly how we end up hurting wildlife. Most people wouldn't actually hurt another living creature. But we just don't think about them. We destroy their forests, and we don't even think that that's their home. And then they wander into yards, and we kill them because they don't have a home anymore because we put our house on it. I mean, what's wrong with us that we're not thinking about them? So I go into some of that in the book, and that's why I use the story of the lions, because we're wildlife photographers. We're not going to hurt animals, but look what we potentially did to this little cub. So that's why I use that story, because we're built. All of us that care about animals are also guilty.
Well, this is incredible because you need people like you to bring the awareness to the public. And as a matter of fact, it might be nice for our audience to know how to reach you. So would there be a website that they can go to, or maybe even reach you in person?
Yeah, sure. So there's actually 2 websites. One is lovehealsbabyelephants.com, and I have a Facebook account of that. And then my own, as a psychologist, I have my own website that talks about what insurances I take and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And I'm in Beverly. My office is in Beverly, and I have a therapy dog there by the name of Garth.
Garth, yes, I've met him.
Yeah, he sits on the patient's lap as they're talking about their problems. Mm-hmm. And so he makes everybody feel comfortable when they're nervous.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. There's so much that we could talk about. I do want to go back and just talk one more moment about the keeper, that elephant keeper. And I have his name as Mishak?
Well, that particular keeper is probably not the one in the photo, but that was like this legendary keeper, and he had this quote, if you love them, they will love you too. And I think that's pretty clear with the elephants. And actually what happens is if they get a keeper in there that the other elephants don't like, they fire them. Because the elephants know, they pick up body language. They know who has a good spirit. They're also very psychic. So
I know, that's what I was going back for, was the psychic part. Can you give us an example of that?
There's just a number of examples of their psychic ability. One is the little babies stay 3 months or 3 years in the orphanage, the nursery, where they are milk dependent. And then once they have some survival skills and they're no longer milk dependent, they will ship them 100 miles away to another place where they interact with the wild herds. And that's how they get prepared for life as a wild elephant. So they have an elephant truck, and 3 will go together because they go with their best friends, because it's not good to disrupt their social fabric. So they go out there, and the matriarch of this wild herd of elephants is always there to greet them. So, who is the psychic connection? Is it between the keepers and the matriarch? We don't know, but they always know when the babies are coming.
That is amazing.
And then there's this, the elephant whisperer, I think Anthony is his name. He, when he died, he rescued some elephants. When he died, 30 elephants came over 100 miles in a solemn parade across the terrain to visit him, and they stayed 2 days to honor his death. So how did they know he had died? There's a zillion examples of. Oh, there's another one is in Zimbabwe. They decided to call. They sometimes when there's too many elephants, they will kill them, and so they started doing this. But elephants that were not even near this park where they decided to, were way far away, hundreds of miles furthest away from the killing. And so how did they know about that? I mean, we don't know. I mean, one assumption is that they are more connected to the earth, and they are connected to forces that we don't know about. They're infrasound, they have all this stuff. So they also don't see themselves as superior the way that we do. So there's some connection, some psychic connections, some grounding in the earth, some grounding in psychic forces that they're aware of that we just don't because of our arrogance.
And I remember the term you used was the gardeners of the earth.
Yeah.
I was moved by that because I'm not sure we really think about that. And that brings me to the United States and other places that are working to help this cause, this global cause. So I'd like to talk a little bit about that.
Okay, so last year there were 4 of us that ran the first Boston Global March for Elephants, and we ran another one this year. And we marched. And this year, because there are some local speakers that were trying to pass a mass bill for banning the trade of ivory, they came down and spoke to the marchers before we started out on our march. So it's 137 cities across the globe are involved in this. So it's a global march for elephants, but we just did this small Boston branch of it. And there's this other important animal thing that's going on next year. They're trying to get the biggest animal march in the world going in June, I think it's June 30th in Washington. So that's called Cecil's Pride, and people could sign up for that. So there are a lot of people that are working on this, but I think as a culture and as a species, we need to have more humility. We need to see that other lives are just as valuable as our own. We need to value their intelligence and their wisdom. And we need to stop feeling so superior, like their lives don't matter, or a little statue on a shelf is more than life. I mean, come on, what's wrong with that?
It's very wrong. It's very wrong. And I know we have a bill in Congress to address this ivory war.
Right.
Or trading, ivory trading.
Right.
And there's a lot of people.
There's a lot of people involved in it.
That,
Yeah.
so.
Well, I mean, in part because the ivory is funding all the terrorism. So, I mean, our government is really behind it, because that's all those in Kenya, that big thing in the shopping mall where all this, that was financed by a big terrorist group, and a lot of the planes that are being bombed and stuff is from the Ivory money. So, you know, this is a quick way for them to make money.
And in closing, because we've almost run out of time with this topic, and there's so much more to talk about. I loved Elie Wiesel's quote about the love of power and the power of love. And I know I want to make sure I say this right. The opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference.
Right.
And I think that your message is the power of love and not the love of power.
Right.
Am I right with that?
You're right with that, yeah.
And how can we as a group, as the audience, how can we help in any way? What would you like to give out as an advice?
Well, I think here in the United States, I mean, you can stop using products with palm oil because they're destroying all the orangutans and all of the rainforests. And, you know, so in our own environment, we can be careful about voting on things that destroy forests, because that's the home of other creatures. We can be compassionate if a wild animal goes into our yard and not try to kill it just because it's in our yard. It used to be their home. Mm-hmm. We can start to think that other species' lives are valuable, not just ours.
Very, very well said, Mary. Is there anything else that we haven't covered? Is there a point that you would like to make to our audience, or just a request?
Yeah, I think that the people who are parents can teach their kids to value life over objects, and to get them out of their little video games where they blow up people, and they can go out in the world and they can study the beauty of a caterpillar or a butterfly, or go into the forest. I mean, I think it's kind of a shame that kids are being raised by a virtual world. Instead of the real world is calling out for help, including the elephants and rhinos.
That's very true. And what else are you going to be working on now that you are about to launch this wonderful book?
Well, I was thinking about doing something on dogs. I did this, the chapter on the psychic part of elephants was fascinating to me, and I was thinking about doing another book on the psychic powers of dogs.
That would be very interesting.
Yeah.
Everyone has an interest with that.
Yeah.
So I just want to thank you very, very much for being on Get Your Voice Out There.
Well, thank you for having me, Roberta.
Really, it is all my pleasure. And I think that it will be helpful for everyone in the world to hear your words and to see your beautiful photos. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching Get Your Voice Out There. This is Roberta Chadis. We'll see you soon.